Alderman Connors.
Here.
Alderwoman Barbosa. Alderman McNamara.
Here.
Alderman Simpson.
Present.
Alderman Gibson.
Here.
Alderman Smedley. Alderwoman Beloin Saavedra.
Here.
Alderman Pabon. You have a quorum. Also seated are Alderman Malinowski, Alderman Russell, and Alderman Santiago.
Thank you. And Ms. Clerk, will you please read into the record the notice of the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to waive the reading.
Thank you, Alderwoman Beloin Saavedra. I have a second by Alderman Simpson. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion to waive carries, and the reading is waived. Having been noticed properly, we will begin the public hearing. Please remember to state your name and address for the record and limit your speaking time to 3 minutes. The first item for public hearing is item number 36404, Amendment to Chapter 2, Section 2-42 of the Code of Ordinances regarding Common Council subject matter committees. Are there any speakers for this item? Are there any speakers? Are there any speakers? Seeing no speakers, we will move on to the next item. The second item for public hearing is item number 36405, Amendment to Chapter 2, Section 2566 of the Code of Ordinances to require a report to the council once a contract has been signed by all parties. Are there any speakers for this item? Are there any speakers? Are there any speakers? Seeing no speakers, we will move on to the next item. The third item for public hearing is item number 36407, Amendment to Chapter 22, Section 22-9 and 2210 of the Code of Ordinances to require that a report be submitted to the council once an agreement has been fully signed by all parties. Are there any speakers for this item? Any speakers? Any speakers? Seeing no speakers, we will now close public participation and move on to the regular meeting. The time is now 6:33 p.m. The first item on the agenda is 36404, Amendment to Chapter 2, Section 242 of the Code of Ordinances regarding Common Council subject matter committees. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Simpson?
I'd like to make a motion to refer this item back to the full council with a neutral recommendation, or a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman McNamara. Motion to refer with a neutral recommendation made by Alderman Simpson, seconded by Alderman McNamara. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, unless Alderman McNamara wants to go first.
No, I'll defer to Alderman Simpson.
Thank you. I would like to propose a motion to amend this item to restore the language, "There shall be subject matter committees of the Common Council." And is it possible for me to make another amendment to this language, or is it one by one here?
One at a time, right? And
I think you can make them together. Are they complicated?
Yes. Section 2-41, it's lines 2 and 3 for the first one.
that's the tabled item. Alderman Simpson, are you referring to item number 36404 or 36?
Oh, I apologize. I have the wrong resolution here.
Pardon me.
All right, give me one moment here.
We've got 36364, which is a tabled item, and I believe that language you're referring to is applicable to that.
Yes.
We are currently on number 1, 36404.
Yes, give me 1 second here. 36404, correct?
Right. That's what, we're on P, yes. Which,
Okay. Give me 1 moment here. All right, and in this case, I have no amendments to this language. I'd like to withdraw the amendment and refer back to the council with a favorable recommendation.
favorable, okay. All right, I again have a motion to refer with a favorable recommendation by Alderman Simpson, seconded by Alderman McNamara. Any further discussion? Alderwoman Boulogne Saavedra?
Could somebody from the majority party just explain why this is here, why this is a recommendation? I don't oppose it, I'm just curious how we got to it, why we're eliminating the consolidated committee and adding more to the plates of the other two committees. Could somebody just discuss that?
Alderman Santiago?
Yes. So in previous years, Consolidated barely had, multiple cancellations because there was nothing, pretty much nothing in an agenda. So it made more sense, remove the Consolidated, put those departments up into the other two that really pretty much deals with most of the agendas that goes on. So this was just pretty much just, just clearing up some areas, just, again, the Consolidated barely has any agenda, related meetings, so this is pretty much redundant to have
All
a
right,
committee
fair- that's fair enough. I just want to follow up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. When does it go into effect? Because we have a consolidated meeting tomorrow, and then the consolidated committee is scheduled for budget discussions on the committees that are currently under consolidated. So if this goes to the council and passes, when is consolidated actually dissolved, and when does this all take place?
I would think after the council meeting, if it gets approved at the council meeting, then it would be dissolved after that. Because again, tomorrow is still technically, it hasn't gone to the council for a full approval. So right now it's really a referral to the council. And then once it gets approved, I would think, Mary?
I was just trying to look, I thought it was after publication when there's a change to the
Okay.
ordinance. I have to take a look at the ordinances for that answer.
So the reason I ask, again, through you, Mr. Chairman, is because we are scheduled for that budget.
Yes.
Consolidated with the budget, and that's probably the one time consolidated is really important because police and fire and those kinds of things are under consolidated, so, and we have that on our schedule. So if this is going to dissolve consolidated prior to that, then we need to know through Jessica as soon as possible how our schedule is changing in terms of that whole budget and going over department budgets.
I think this is the reason why we're trying to make sure to get it, so that way all the information will be passed to our council members before.
Okay, because otherwise, in concept, I have no problem with this. I
Yep.
just want to know when
Okay.
it's going to be implemented.
So just to be clear, do you want to have consolidated for purposes of the budget, or do you not? Because you can certainly have an effective date. If you want to keep consolidated for those purposes, you can have an effective date of after that time period. I mean, you can amend it and add an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman McNamara?
Yeah. I think the resolution as stated delineates that things revert over to the Administration Finance Law Committee or the Planning, Zoning, and Housing Committee for the areas of responsibility for consolidated. And so I would support adoption as is. And we come to the 10th and the budget. We could create a date certain, but as soon as I read this, and council can correct, it would be adopted after it's approved at the April 10th meeting.
All right, and I don't have a problem with that, but I just want to make sure for clarity's sake, thereby that the only consolidated meeting we're having is tomorrow, and after tomorrow, if this passes the council on the 10th, there is no more consolidated. And then the budget hearing that's already scheduled for consolidated goes away. And then
Alderman.
all the agencies that would have been in consolidated are now part of the budgetary process of the other two committees. Am I following this?
If I may, Mr. Chair, the Alderwoman is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderwoman Boulogne Saavedra. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion to refer, yes. Alderman Simpson.
I'm just asking this purely out of curiosity. I'm wondering how the members of the consolidated subcommittee feel about this proposal.
I asked.
Showing eye contact.
Thank you, Alderman Simpson. Any members of the Consolidated Committee care to opine on his question.
We're both here, actually, there's two of us. I don't have an issue with it.
I have no issue with it at all.
All right. Well, it's not for lack of love to the Consolidated Committee, but more as a measure of efficiency. I think this is, again, proposed here with a favorable recommendation. And do I have any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you.
That might be the only one tonight, fellas.
Oh. Second item on the agenda is 36405, amendment to Section 2-566 of the Code of Ordinances to require a report to the council once a contract has been signed by all parties. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I make a motion to accept and refer to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I have a motion to accept and refer with a favorable by Alderman McNamara. Any second? Seconded by Alderman Simpson. Do I have any discussion on the
On the,
item?
on the resolution, Mr. Chairman, the first clause says, "Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Britain that Section 2-42 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances be amended." Can I make a change in that, if the Corp Council will back me up, from 2-42 to 2-566?
Thank you.
That
An
is
amendment.
correct. That was an error, sorry, yeah.
We have an amendment to fix a Scribner error. Do I have a second? It's seconded by Alderman Simpson. Any discussion of the amendment to change 2-42 to 2-566? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The amendment carries. We return to the resolution on the agenda. May I have a motion on the resolution? Oh, yes.
I made, if I have to make that as amended, I'll do that again.
All right.
It's just conversation of it as it's amended.
All right, all right. Well, we have, any other discussion on the resolution as amended?
Yes.
Alderwoman Boulain Saavedra?
Thank you. So I see a pattern, because there was something similar to this at last night's, and I did watch the discussion online last night. So can someone just please explain why this is in front of us, and why there's 3 different resolutions all with the same kind of concept, that either it's come to the council, we've seen kind of the overline, we've given our approval, and then these things are coming back to us after the fact. I mean, after a contract is signed, we are not going to have any authority to do anything with it. So I just would like the majority party who is putting this forward to just kind of explain the rationale for this.
Thank you, Alderwoman Boulain Saavedra. Alderman McNamara?
I didn't raise my hand, but thanks very much.
I saw you, you raised your thumb. You raised your thumb.
Well,
I can comment if you'd like.
well, thanks for the question, Alderman Saavedra. Yeah, we had this discussion last night. I'm sorry you missed it. Oh, no, you
I watched it.
were you home watching it. This is what I would call a transparency resolution to the approving body for any contracts, expenditures over the $7,500 is the council. And this is a request that the completed agreements and contracts in full come back to the council as reports, not necessarily for action. And this, we had a good discussion of the FOI law last night, and I would just say that it is, I think, should be a standard operating procedure. I don't see a burden in time or admin costs to provide these, the full disclosure of the agreements after the council ratifies the agreed-upon amounts.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Alderwoman Boulain Saavedra?
So if I followed last night's discussion, and probably some of the discussion that we're going to have tonight, about redundancy, and I did listen to that last night, and/or the amount of staff time to compile this. And John, I heard you, Alderman McNamara, I heard you say that you don't really think that that's a burden. So my question would be, is this something that, let's say, an alderman is interested in a specific contract, isn't that something that we could ask Jessica Geritana as our staff person to go and get that information for us and bring it back? So now it's something the council wants, the council has staff. Isn't this something our staff could do on our behalf as opposed to requiring other departments' staff to put this together for us?
Thank you, Alderwoman Valencia-Vedra. Alderman McNamara, care to respond?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would, I would say that it could very well be a burden on our council administrator, but my point is it wouldn't be a burden on any of the responsible members of the administration or of the administration to provide that. This is, again, to me, it's a common sense SOP, standard operating procedure, that actually respects the authority and the function of the Common Council. You know, I think you're probably going to hear me more than once talk about the need in our form of government for checks and balances. And you're going to hear me and others more than once establish the council as a co-equal branch of the government, as responsible as the executive branch for what goes on. So that's done in this spirit, not to circumvent any authority of the other branch of government, but just to provide the details that are not included when the bids are approved in resolutions coming before the council.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman
And
Valencia-Vedra.
then I'll yield, because I'm sure other people want to jump in here. I'm just going to fuss, so it won't be the John and Sharon back and forth. But, so you think it's reasonable to claim that our staff person would be burdened by this request, but it's not reasonable for the mayor's office to claim that the other department staff would be burdened? See, I'm having a problem with that, and you may have won me over on this resolution if we took responsible and said, the resolutions have to be, this information has to be made available, but our staff person is responsible for obtaining that information. I'm just having a hard time with the argument that it is a burden for our department, but it's not a burden for the other departments. I'm having a problem with that concept. And at that, I'll leave it and let other people jump in and talk about it.
Alderman Simpson.
So I'll agree with John in the sense that this move and the other ones that you mentioned tend to improve on transparency, because my understanding is that this body doesn't actually negotiate the contracts. What this body does is it grants the authority to the mayor to go negotiate those contracts. All we are asking for is to see the language that the mayor comes back in a more transparent manner. And the way that would happen is through essentially a report to the council, which people at home, myself, everybody here could then type in keywords to the common council minutes and have an answer for our constituents when they ask us, like, what is the city spending money on? What are the contracts going on? Like, I hate telling people I don't know. So having that tool simply available online without us having to solicit it and then have weeks delay between us and city staff. And I'm not blaming the mayor, I'm not blaming the city staff. It's just, this does cut down on the number of asks that have to be made, which will eat the time of our council staff as well as the mayor's staff. Because if we don't have these reports, we're gonna be asking all of the department heads to go through and filter through these contracts and get us that language anyway. And so, I hear you, through you, Chair, I hear you when you say, like, oh, it's going to be a burden on one staff or another group of staff, but ultimately, this move, I think, will cut down on the number of asks that we have to make in order to get information, which should be public anyway. And I heard arguments last night regarding the Freedom of Information Act. There are often weeks delay between the ask and people getting data, and if you're getting paper copies, there are often costs incurred, which act as barriers to entry to access whatever information it is, be it a police report, be it a contract, or, you know, something from the clerk's office. These are documents which people are often charged money for, and as an organizer, like, we don't always have the time to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks for a response. So having this amount of accessibility and transparency, I think, would cut down on the number of asks, cut down on the time wasted, and then in a funky way, reduce the overall workload on city staff between the council and mayor's office. So that's what I think this move is for, and for just to address the pattern, right? This language is present in multiple areas, and there's language in other areas, not here, but in other portions where the language says that we approve contracts or contracts that have been approved by the council, which is not a function that we actually do. So eliminating that and just simply having this come back as a report, I think puts a nice bow on this accessibility matter.
Thank you,
I know
Alderman
it's
Simpson.
a lot,
Chairman,
but.
I just want to clarify one point. It's not even, but the council does approve contracts. We approved union contracts. Although we do not negotiate them, they are contracts, and they come to this body, and we approve them.
Thank you, Alderwoman Beloin-Saavedra.
I got a quick question, yeah.
Alderman Pabon.
Once we approve a contract, the whole council approves it. The department head or the mayor cannot change it unless it comes back to the council, don't it? Or is that for
Thank you,
Mary?
Alderman Pabon. Alderman McNamara, did you have?
Was that a question? Can
Yeah, I got a question, yeah.
So, just to be clear, these contracts are typically, so this is, there's a reason why it says purchasing agent, because the purchasing agent is the one that signs these contracts typically. Doesn't involve the mayor. These are contracts that come to you, to the council as bids. There's been bids accepted, and a formal contract is required. So in those bids are the terms of what the person who bid on the project is. So there's 2 forms contract. There's a smaller form for everything other than construction, and there's standard terms in that agreement. And then there's a construction form that is used by the purchasing agent, which is also standard, and it incorporates into the agreement the bids and specs that were part of the whole project and the proposal from the contractor. So these are things that have been in front of the council as far as the awarding of the bids, and typically, the mayor does not get involved. It's the purchasing agent that's signing those contracts, that's handling everything.
Okay, so we approved the contracts then?
You approve the bid,
Yeah,
like,
the
so he'll
bid.
come to you and say, these were the bids.
Yeah.
He'll give you an analysis, and he'll tell you who the lowest bidder is, and you authorize the contract to go to the lowest bidder. And then after that, he will use the form of contract that's involved, and he'll send it to me just for review. And then if there's if it's, no changes, then it'll be signed off by the parties. But the party signing it is the purchasing agent, not the mayor, typically in those situations.
So the purchasing agent can't change anything after we vote?
No, it's based on the bid. So
Yeah.
it's very specific. When there's a bid involved, you have to go by the terms of the bid that was submitted by the contractor.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Alderman Pabon. Alderman McNamara?
Thank you. Well, I think Corp Counsel explained it very well. The point being, the council is the approving authority on the approved amounts. And again, having the council receive all the details of what's being spent and how it's being spent is, as an alderman, first-term alderman, it would be helpful to me in terms of informing me on future decisions as well. But if I could, Mr. Chairman, let me make what I think is an amendment friendly to the minority caucus. I'm sure I'll hear about it if it's not. In terms of the issue of burdens on the administration for providing things. Under 2-566, it states monthly report of the purchase of the aggregate, these are small bids, small amounts, between 500 and 7,500 shall be provided. It says here on a monthly basis. Could I amend that? I would amend or offer an amendment to make it a quarterly basis.
Thank you,
Can I-
Alderman.
And ask for a second.
Can you vote? Sorry. Seconded by Alderwoman, sorry, I have a motion to amend by Alderman McNamara, seconded by Alderwoman Barbosa. Any discussion on the amendment?
If I could I just want to be clear that
Yep.
that's a separate category. Alderman, you're aware of that? That's not the category that's in the part that so you're talking about Part A is purchases over $7,500. And then the second part is anything between $500 and $7,500 that does not have to go to bid. So I just want to make sure that that's clear and that's what your intent is.
Thank you. Yeah, that is my intent as I stated in the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, the amendment seems to, if there's no other discussion, if I can.
I'm going to ask one.
Alderwoman Valencia Vega.
So I appreciate Attorney Pecorski clarifying that. So that's, that actually has little impact on what we're talking about in the bigger scope of this proposal to have all contracts come back to the council. So this isn't saying all the contracts come back quarterly. This is about a report that already happens, and instead of happening on a monthly basis, it would happen on a quarterly basis. This report's already happening. So the part that your caucus is trying to change is the A paragraph, 2566 subsection A. So this amendment does nothing to change what you are seeking in terms of every contract coming back to the council in a report form. So from the standpoint of the Rudd caucus and our concerns, this amendment does nothing to alleviate our concerns. So I just want to make sure you understand that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Alderwoman Barbosa.
Sharon mentioned concerned. Sharon, you mentioned it being a concern to you for a copy of the contract once it's signed. Why would that be a concern?
It's not so much a concern that we have it, it's a concern that it's duplicative in terms of we get all the information and we get to vote yes or no before it ever goes to the purchasing agent for a contract. So let's say it's buying a fire truck. And we've done a lot of that lately, some replacing a vehicle. And there was a bid, and this is the bid award, this is how much it's for, and the chief comes up and explains it, and we say yes. Why do we need that contract to come back to us to show us what we already approved? We already said, we got the bid specs, they told us where the money was gonna come from, what account it was gonna come from. We as a council said yes. Why do we now need to see that contract as signed after we approved the bid specs with the amount of money?
Why would we not?
Because we already know it's in the contract, we approved the bid specs.
Yeah, but we don't have it signed. I, for one, when I do contracts, and because I work in a corporate field, would want to see a signed contract once it's all negotiated and once it's all closed out.
And that's a fair point from me. I just have a different point of view. Seeing that we get all the information up front and we're voting on it up front, I don't need to have that contract, and there's a lot of contracts, especially through the purchasing agent, and you'll see it in all the agendas that you've already voted on, the amount of contracts that would come. I think for the purchasing agent's office, that's a lot of work. So I guess I would say, why are we asking somebody else's staff to do that work for us when we have our staff?
My question is, does the staff that we have get a faster response than the mayor's staff, or does the mayor's staff get a faster response to the common council? Because we all know how FOIs operate. Depending on what information you're looking for, it can take weeks, days, months, and sometimes years, and we shouldn't have to wait. I think as a common council, and being the role that we play, that if we ask for something, we should be able to get it, and we shouldn't have to go through the process of what the outsiders have to go to. So I believe that as a whole, albeit, be it redundant or not, that we are requesting this information and it should be afforded to us without an argument if there's no big issue about it, if there's no major concern, rather, except for that it's gonna be more work on one person than it is on another person.
But every single contract you want to see.
I would.
Okay, I'm going to respectfully disagree, but you have the right to, I mean, I'm not going to argue with your opinion. You have the right to feel that way. I had asked somebody to give me a concrete example of why this is in front of us. Did somebody ask for something and they were delayed or stalled in getting it, or just an outright refusal to get a specific contract? And nobody was able to tell me something very specifically that triggered this. You know, so if the majority party had come to the table and said, look, here are 3 different times, you know, we voted on a bid or we voted on a tax abatement, and we wanted some information after the fact, and the administration dragged their feet or just flat out refused to give us that information, I'd say, okay, now I understand why this is in front of us. But not having anybody say there's ever been a problem or a request that was made and denied, I'm at a loss for why this is here. And I agree, the council should never have to FOI information. We should always be able to ask and receive, so that I totally agree with you on.
Can I just, because I just want to be clear,
Lights, Phaedra?
it has never been stated that the council has to FOI information. I specifically stated last night that under 2-25 of the Code of Ordinances, it specifically states that the council can ask any department. Again, I'm going to read it because it was never stated you have to ask for it through FOI. It says, "Alderperson shall have access to any public record in City Hall and may call upon any department head to produce upon request any public record or produce reports for said alderperson with an amicable and agreed upon time between said alderperson and any department head. No approval or referral by any other authority shall be needed for said request." So I just want to be absolutely clear that you don't have to make an FOI request. No one ever said that. It's specifically in the ordinances that if an alderperson requests information, they can receive it.
Thank you, counsel. I have Alderman Santiago.
Now, the question, Alderman Valor, Saray just said that if council members had issues getting information, I myself, previous, had those issues. I would say here, record, multiple times that we had asked, and that we never, it was, I'm not sure what their answer was. Well, some of their answers were, they can't give it because, you know, they might get in trouble, or that they ignored the question. I mean, I think we did a report just on their petitions, and it was over 100 petitions that year that I was in, from 15 to 17, that wasn't responded to. So again, there has been times that we did have asked requests, and I asked my caucus, I told them multiple times, before you put a petition in, reach out to your directors or whoever is in charge of that department. And now you see some petitions becomes, again, they did not get that response when they were needed it. So that being said, that is false. It has been multiple times where administrators did not answer certain questions to certain council members because of fear of retaliation, and that's being honest. Again, I am honest about it because that's who I am. But on this one right here, again, we don't see the contract at all. All we get is little spurts of what the contract's going to have in there. And then also, again, we give the authority to the mayor to do the negotiations, which she has the authority to. And I keep saying she. Or the purchasing person has authority to. But we don't see the final outcome of what that is. And again, what's wrong with seeing what is the final dots and T's crossed? It just boggles me that is questioning why, when especially this body that's supposed to be overseeing some of those situations where spending, right, or certain, you know, buildings or properties being sold, that asking what it looks like at the end of the day once it's done. The conversation's been done. When we have those times, we have our meetings here because, again, we have our, the contracts that haven't been negotiated for, certain departments, and, and again, we obviously know that those things hasn't been done yet, and so we have to speak in caucus over it, and then afterwards, whatever's done. But we don't see that after that. We don't see any of those things. So it's nothing that I see here that is causing, and then again, you're asking about administration. We have one person Go to each department and see how many administrators they have, how many secretaries, how many people that they have in their offices. And you're asking one person that has to do with 15 individuals to do more than she does. And she does a lot even what she has now. So again, you're asking this body why we're doing our job. That's what that's what I feel like.
Thank you, Alderman Santiago. Alderman Russell.
I'm not actually asking you why did we get against you doing your job? That's not the question, but you keep on mentioning there's not a cost behind it. But you're saying there's a cost behind an FOI and other things. How can there be a cost for one thing but not for another one? It still requires labor to do this. There's still a cost behind everything. And your fact is the petitions, most petitions go to commissions to begin with. They don't go to department heads. So a petition is really a lousy example of what you're getting at as far as not getting your answers. And if I didn't get my answers, I definitely would know what my answers that I didn't get. I'm not saying that you're not telling the truth at this point, but I mean, what we're getting out of this, I'm not getting what I need to vote on this when it comes up. And I can't vote on this at this point because I think there is labor behind it.
Yeah.
And I think we got a system in place at this point that does exactly this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Russell. We had Alderman McNamara followed by,
Well, to Alderman Russell's point, that was the point of on the no bid reports. I'd rather have them monthly, not quarterly. I was trying to make a good faith effort to speak to your concern about our hardworking staff members in the administration. But again, if I get a call from a Ward 4 resident on a contract for street improvements or other things, if I get a call for that, I'd like to know the details, if that constituent has questions about it, the full and complete details, not, obviously the first one is how much does that cost? We already know that. But the second one is, what are the details of that work, that project, the work being done on that project? So, we all represent wards now. We want to respond to constituents with accurate information after the deal's been consummated. So it's done in that spirit. To repeat what's in the ordinance about no bid contract, these reports are for information purposes only. So what is the problem with standard operating procedure of receiving all the details of the money this city's spending so this body can respond to information that constituents may ask without them going to the trouble of an FOI? You know the deal on the FOI. The city responds immediately and says, if it's so many pages, 50 cents per page, but it does take time. So it's in that spirit, reports come back to the council, we know the details. And it's really just, to me, it's good governance. It's good governance.
hold on, if I may interject, just to save our corporation's council sanity, by the procedures outlined in section 2-25 of the current, is that the charter or the ordinances? Apologies. Thank you. Or should it be necessary under circumstances, also FOI, but just so you don't tear your hair out, Madam Council. All right, Alderman Simpson, I have 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. So in terms of us being able to contact department heads, I have asked department heads for information. I've even asked department heads for information when they stand at that podium, and I've gotten the response, I'll follow up with that. And to this day, I haven't gotten any answers. And I'll pick one out of the hat. I asked, I believe, a department head about the city's $190 or so million pension obligation, which has ballooned since 2018, and I still haven't gotten any clarity as to why that is. In terms of the labor regarding this resolution, I'll agree with Alderman Russell. There is labor behind everything. I have massive respect for the work that people do, and when we don't get answers from department heads in a timely manner, if at all, that is labor on us to then make a secondary ask to then have the staff go and find that information anyway. So if I am to go to every department and ask for a contract from them, it's going to result in a larger time dedication to find that information piece by piece than bundling it all together in a monthly or a quarterly report. And as for the quarterly thing, it's bundling. I think it would save some time for staff if this were done every 3 months instead of every 1 month, especially when we are making the ask to do an additional task, which in my opinion would save greater labor over the term of this council. And just in spirit, I'm going to speak metaphorically here. When we get the contracts, I see that as we're sitting down at a restaurant and we're given the menu, right? We're given the prices, we're given the options, and we pick that. But when we get up and leave, I would like to see a receipt, right? There are sales tax that, for example, like I didn't figure when I sat down and ordered the meal. There is a tip included in that. And so having that final receipt to say this is how much we are paying, this is what the city is doing, I think is valuable. And there is the added mechanism where these contracts would then be searchable in the council archives, which would be a massive transparency boost for organizers across the city, no matter what you're looking into. So I think while there is a small increase of labor here, it will save the city time and energy as compared to having all 15 of us go and individually ask for different items. God forbid if we're asking for the same items from the same department and they have to double up on that. So I have appreciation for labor, but overall I think this would prevent a lot of doubling up on things and improve transparency. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Alderman Simpson. I've got Alderwoman Scott and then Alderman Russell. Oh,
So I think, going back to what Alderman McNamara was saying, that the checks and balances are extremely important. And I don't know if anybody else remembers from when you're in history class, they teach a lot about the checks and balances through some of those history classes and how that's an important part of our government in this country. Having these checks and balances and providing so that this information can get given to every person who lives here. So everybody has access to this information. As far as the FOIs go, I have some experience from being a constituent before being on the council and asking for information, having my aldermen not be, and this is last term, not be able to get information for me for a concern that I had, to the point where I had to spend money out of my pocket to get the information that was needed. And that should not be happening ever. So as an alderwoman now, I think that this is important because the information needs to be given to me. I do not want anyone who lives here to have to pay for that information that I should already have access to or be able to get at a time effectively as quickly as possible for them to get what they need. That's why we're here. Like I said last night, we're here for the people who live here. We're serving them, and we need to be able to have information. And just like Alderman Simpson said, we need receipts. Like every time you do something, you need a receipt for what has happened and documentation. And we just need to be able to see that. It's not really that much of a problem. I don't think that it's much of a problem for that to be getting done so that we can have good checks and balances and transparency and make sure that we are serving our residents that live here in New Britain as effectively as possible. So.
thank you, Alderwoman Scott. Alderman McNamara, sorry, he was hot on the mic.
Let me try and respond to Alderwoman Saavedra's concern and others on this amendment I offered. I'd like to amend that amendment, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
And retain the wording for no bid contracts to monthly reports.
Okay.
And offer this substitute. In Section A, which is the major concern here, that the purchasing agent shall make quarterly reports to the council. It just says shall report now. When the written contract has, or we could probably say when written contracts in that category have been signed and attached a copy of the signed contract. So that puts a, not a immediate burden, but a quarterly time and effort for major spending over $7,500. And I'd ask for a second.
Can you just repeat the language you would like to insert here?
I'll try. Under Section A, Alderman Simpson, Section 2-566, in the underlined portion, the purchasing agent shall make quarterly reports to the council when written contracts have been signed and will attach copy of the signed contracts.
Seconded by Alderman Simpson. All in favor of the amendment? Oh, sorry? Oh, is there further discussion on the item as amended? If-
Well, what it does is it's a category of spending, Alderman Russell, of purchases over $7,500, which is the no bid minimum now. And it can go from $10,500 to $2,500,000. So it's significant amounts of money that I'm trying to respond to the concerns expressed by Alderman Spader and others.
If I may, Council, can I comment at this point? The Alderman McNamara is helping with an amendment that we had discussed, and this was the original intent of the amendment to require the, again, just to address the concerns of either duplication or staff time to make the primary bulk of the reporting into a quarterly report with copies of the contracts attached. But I do think that would address the other parties' concerns regarding staff time, given that there's no current quarterly report in this format. It would be not duplicative, and I would support the amendment. Thank you.
And just to reiterate, the portion on the monthly report on no bid spending would be retained.
That's it. Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderwoman Belen Saavedra?
So I do appreciate John trying to get there, so I do appreciate the effort. I will say that I do. I just want to make a couple comments. Every single one of you who raised an issue about not being able to obtain information or asking for it and they've been delayed or you feel that you've been ignored, none of what you said had anything to do with contracts. So all the information that you guys all said you asked for and didn't receive had nothing to do with contracts. So even if this passed, that doesn't get you to where you're asking to be, in that you should be respected as an alderman, ask for information and receive it. But each and every example that was given by members of the majority caucus, not one of the examples had to do with contracts. That was one thing I wanted to say. I will tell you that I was an alderman, well, not this last session, but 2 years prior under Mayor Stewart's administration. And then I was an alderman for 4 years under Don DeFranzo's administration. Never in all the years that I served as an alderwoman has any constituent, and I served both at large and now in a ward, ever asked me a single question about a contract. I have never once been called by a constituent to ask the details of a contract. I may have been asked how much a fire truck cost, where the money came from, but outside of those two things, which we know when we pass the bid, I have never ever been asked, have you seen the signed contract and what are the gory details? Because the important details are how much is it costing the city, where is the money coming from, and was the purchase or the service actually necessary? I'm just telling you my experience. That doesn't mean what you're looking for is right or wrong. It is my personal experience. And then, of course, if I had someone say, Sharon, I saw the council meeting and this purchase or for service or an item was made, I'd like to know what that contract looked like. Then I'd call the purchasing agent and say, hey, I actually have a constituent interested in knowing the finer points of this specific contract. So I guess I would like to test that before I think we need 3 different resolutions that amend the ordinances to do something that might be already accessible to us by what Corp Council has already said. But I'm just saying, I don't see the problem that you all feel is a problem. I just don't see it. And then that's the last thing I'm going to say on it, except that I do appreciate John trying to find a midpoint for us. I truly do appreciate that, John. And then maybe some of the other members of my caucus might want to weigh in and say something. But John, thank you for trying.
Thank you, Alderwoman Belanger. Alderwoman Barbosa.
You having served in the past, I can respect that and understand that. But in the past, there hasn't been a major uproar as there has been the past couple of years with these new apartments going up and this new development going up in the city, and people are asking for that information. They want to know what the city has gotten them into. They want to see evidence. They really are asking. When we went door knocking, people were asking for this information. They were really asking for this information, the impact that it's having on the city, on the constituents that live here, on the outsiders, the people that had left, the people that do not want to return. This is very, very important that we have this information readily available. Should we walk out this building and someone stop us and question us, we should be able to have an immediate response to them and not say to them, I don't have that answer right now, I will get back to you. I think it's important that we should be able to have this information readily available to us and not have to ask for it once we've already reviewed it and it's been signed. Because like Nate said, we need to see the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
May I ask what information we're talking about?
Who's the question addressed? Who are you directing the question to?
I'm sorry, Alderwoman.
Barbosa?
Yep.
They want to know the money, where
Yeah,
the money's coming from, where the money is going.
No. What question are you referring to as far as the statement you just made?
About people asking for
Yeah.
it? Well, like I'm stating, people want to know where the money's coming from, how it's being spent, the tax abatements, and all that information.
Okay.
And I don't want to prolong it, I don't want to prolong this, but if I may, Mr. Chairman, to Alderwoman Barbosa's, through her experience in the corporate world, I'm an alderman. I'd like to know the scope of work and I think I would be likely to ask for it in terms of any projects impacting neighborhoods. And I think it not only pertains to costs, which we're all accountable for spending, and the scope of work, the details. And it's for informational purposes only, so that we can be informed on future requests, as well as being able to respond to requests for information ourselves, notwithstanding the other issue of requests for information from the department heads. That is a separate issue.
Thank you, Alderman McNamara. Alderman Russell, any
I'm a little bit
discussion?
confused about, this really has nothing to do with
What?
the resolution we're talking about, though, does it? I mean, as far as the information you're talking about, as far as getting the request of different, I mean, are we talking about, these are not the things that won't be coming back to us, is it? I mean, we're
Thank you,
talking about
Alderman.
something totally different.
Russell, Alderman McNamara, do you care to respond?
Yes. Alderman Russell, I think I'll restate, it has to do with this council approving agreements and spending, and we'd like to know the implementation details of that for information purposes only.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman McNamara. I have a question from Alderman Gibson.
Yes, I'm first term here, right? And I am getting confused. I'm not understanding, is it based on the contractual, what we see here, or is it based on other stuff? And I just want to ask once again, once the contract is signed, are we able to see that information or attain that information without a FOI?
Yes.
Yes, you can ask for the information from the purchasing agent. In this particular case, you can say, I want a copy of it. When I spoke with Alderman Santiago about this, we also talked about the fact that in each resolution related to approval of contracts, you can ask for a copy of the contract to be sent to the alder people when it's signed. So there are ways that you guys can obtain it other than a report, I think is the issue.
And do we get notice when the contracts are signed?
Do you receive notice now? No, you're not notified specifically it's signed, no.
Thank you. Any other questions, Alderman Gibson?
No.
Thank you. Taking a pause, we have Alderman Simpson.
Just really quickly, I really do appreciate the insight that people have in terms of their experience in prior administrations. My experience here in the few short months that I have is that people do ask about contracts, and it's not necessarily what the city is purchasing, but mentioning the tax modification agreements I feel is incredibly important here, because I haven't had to ask for tax modification agreements because those are already available through the Common Council minutes for free, and I haven't heard anybody complain about the staff time it takes to get those into our minutes. This essentially is the same exact thing. It can be as simple as a CC to our staff person. They put it in the minutes or the reports or the agenda, and that's really it. So while I appreciate there is a little bit extra labor involved in this, it can be at least expected, well-maintained, and routine compared to ad hoc requests for probably duplicative information. God forbid, again, we ask for the same thing, such as, like, for example, if Alderman McNamara asks for a contract and we happen to not have a discussion on it, and then I ask for that same contract, that's doubling up the staff time needed to actually get the information to us, which should be accessible anyway. So my experience has been that constituents are curious, and the contracts they don't ask about, they likely don't even know about. But as we go through and as we engage the community, as we talk to people about tax modification agreements, people do have questions, and it's important that we get it to them in a timely manner, because things come up for a vote, and if we can't get information to people in a timely manner, we may be voting on things that they don't know about. And I don't think as representatives of our neighborhoods, that's the best practice.
Thank you, Alderman Simpson. Do we have any further discussion on the item as amended? Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the item as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Thank you. Party line?
Yep.
Party line, thank you. Thank you. The third item on the agenda is 36407. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So we have, so the amendment carries, thank you. We have a favorable recommendation from, I do not remember who, seconded by, I don't, originally, so. Okay, we had a favorable recommendation by Alderman McNamara and a second by Alderman Simpson, thank you. All in favor, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
No.
Party line?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Now on to item number 3. Third item on the agenda is 36407, Amendment Chapter 22, Section 22-9, 22-10 of the Code of Ordinances to require that a report be submitted to the council once an agreement has been fully signed by all parties. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman McNamara.
I make a motion to accept and refer to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Motion to refer with a favorable recommendation by Alderman McNamara, second. Do I have a second? Seconded by Alderman Simpson. Any discussion?
Yes.
Alderwoman Belen Saavedra?
And I apologize, I haven't really read this through thoroughly. Can someone explain to me the purpose of this, what it's actually accomplishing?
Thank you, Alderwoman Belen Saavedra. Any alderpersons care to respond?
But- Mr. Chairman,
Alderman McNamara?
I'll begin. I have a couple of amendments to make to this resolution as well, but let me just respond that, again, it's in the same spirit as the resolution dealing with the contracts, that the full details be disclosed on, I think, the euphemistic term is tax modification agreements that I've seen in resolutions. The 26-year ones we've heard about, the 13-year ones. And it is in the same spirit as a report to the council on the details of that, so that we can answer questions of our constituents, and is done so in the spirit of open government.
Thank you, Alderman McNamara. Do we have any other questions or discussion?
Yes, thank you. I do have a couple of amendments
Alderman
that
McNamara?
that I hope will not be as controversial as I have been. Thank you, Gwen. Again, we have a correction, thanks to our corp counsel and our staff, of the start of this resolution, that this comes under, it states it comes under 2-42 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances. I'd like to make a amendment correcting that to 22-9 and 22-10 of Chapter 22 of the Code of Ordinances. And I defer to the Corp Counsel to confirm that.
That is correct.
Thank you, Alderman McNamara. Do
I
I
asked for a second, yeah, I'm sorry.
have a second on the amendment? Seconded by Alderwoman Barbosa. Any discussion on the clarifying amendment? Seeing none. Any, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
All right,
All opposed, nay. Thank you. So we have the resolution as amended, which clarified and corrected the chapter sections. Any further discussion or amendments on this resolution?
yes. I will offer an amendment, but I'll defer to Alderwoman Saavedra. Or no, may I proceed, Mr.
You
Chairman?
can proceed while she digests, right?
Yes. On the second page of this resolution, at the top, item 5, once a tax modification, it states, once a tax modification, which was approved by the Common Council, has been signed by all parties, a report shall be submitted to the Common Council, and a copy of the signed agreement shall be attached. I would like to delete the words, which was approved by the Common Council. So it stands as is without that phrase. I'd ask for a second.
Thank you, Alderman McNamara. Can I have a second, and then we'll pause for digestion if needed? Alderman Simpson seconded. Again, this is removing language stating which was approved by the Common Council from item 5 of subsection B of 36407. All in favor of the amendment? Oh, any discussion of the amendment? Thank you.
To the maker of the amendment, please. To the maker of the amendment. So are we saying there's a tax modification agreement that you believe happens that's not approved by the Common Council?
No,
Then why are you removing which was approved by the Common Council?
Mr. Chairman?
Alderman McNamara.
Well, I'm going to make that, try and strike that phrase further along in the resolution as well. I think what we're talking about is agreements made within this council, and not, which was approved by another council. There was one before I got here, yes, Alderman Russell.
Thank you, Alderman McNamara. So,
Okay, so I'm probably going to
Alderman
vote against this
Alexander.
anyway, so I guess my opinion here doesn't really matter, because the majority party is going to do what it wants to do, and it's all about the numbers, and believe me, I said that when I was in the majority, so I get it. I just don't understand why you would remove, I think it muddies the waters, because then people don't understand that all tax modification agreements are approved by the council. I understand you want to see them after they're signed, stamped, and all of that, but to remove the phrase "approved by the common council," if you're looking for transparency, would lead someone who's not in the know to not understand that the common council approves all tax modifications. Just my 2 cents.
Alderman Pabon.
So who would approve them then, if we're not gonna approve them?
Alderman Santiago.
Well, we don't approve, we approve the resolution, we don't approve the contract. So that's what the difference is. We approve the resolution that comes in front of us, but the contract, when it's signed and done, we don't approve that part, because again, there's negotiations that happens, there's, again, if you look at your resolution, it allows for the mayor, if there's any other negotiations to go on, we allow that by approving the resolution, but we don't agree, we don't have approval of whatever after that resolution is passed. So we don't approve that part. So if there's any changes, we approve that. We allowed her, I keep saying her, we allowed the mayor to do it. But we're saying is that whatever negotiation that might have happened after that resolution has passed, we have no say on that part. So you can't say that we approve that all of it when it's not, again, if there's some changes in there, we give the mayor that opportunity to do those negotiations. Doesn't mean that we agree on it. We just agreed on whatever was the resolution.
Thank you, Alderman Santiago. Alderman Malinowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Corporation Council, just we approved the terms and the length of
Yeah.
all tax modification agreements?
That's correct. The council approves the terms of the tax modification, which is then put into the tax modification agreement by me. There's a standard form that we use for the tax modification agreements. I now do them. They used to be done by Joe Skelly in my office. And what we do is we take whatever the numbers were approved by the council and we put it into that form contract, and then it's sent to the developer for signature, and then when it comes back to us, we have the mayor sign off on it. So again, the council is approving the numbers and the figures, and those are put into the agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Malinowski. Alderman.
I'll defer to
Alderman Russell. Mike.
Can those numbers change after the fact?
No, because the council approved those numbers. I mean, I don't know if some of you were on the council last time. There was a resolution that came and the council wanted different figures. And there was a resolution to amend those figures, and those were the figures that we use. I go by what is approved by the council.
So what you're saying would require an amendment at that point, correct?
Right, it would have to go back to the council.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman McNamara.
I think the point's being made for me. By training, I've been trained to omit needless words. And that's the spirit of this amendment, to drop the phrase, which was approved by the Common Council.
Thank you. It was, my understanding was to be a clarifying amendment, not the opposite, but Alderman Simpson?
Yeah, so just to be clear, there are no tax modification agreements that go elsewhere. They all go through the Common Council. Okay, so then this language is kind of redundant, because saying which was approved by the Common Council kind of implies to somebody who's not in the know, like, are there modification agreements which don't go through? And so eliminating this language, I think, would clarify just having a tax modification agreement with the understanding that these do go through the council.
Did you just use the word redundant?
Yes.
We've been using that word too.
Well.
Right,
it's-
but I'm
it's-
saying here, there's no deviation compared to
I'm just
contract,
being
right?
wise, okay?
I hear you. I hear
It's
you.
funny, the same point's being made from two different directions. The elimination of the language could be read as eliminating duplicative or redundant language. I'm also hearing that eliminating it would lead to possible confusion regarding whether there is some other body that does tax abatements. But again, the spirit of this amendment was to clarify what is to be an informational report along the lines of the previously discussed resolutions. But, you know, I commend Alderman McNamara for trying really hard to bring folks along and clarify the language here.
This is my first term, Mr. Chairman.
So we do have the amended language here with, again, the intent that there are no other bodies that agree to tax abatements. So that's being the spirit of the amendment. Did we already pass the amendment?
No, you didn't vote on it yet.
Not the amendment, okay. So we're still discussing the item as amended. Do we have any further discussion of the
No, you're
amendment?
discussing the amendment.
The amendment itself? Okay, seeing no further discussion of the amendment, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No,
Party line?
yes.
Okay, back to the original resolution as amended. We have a favorable recommendation.
Mr.
from-
Chairman?
Yes.
I have yet another amendment to make.
Oh, fantastic.
So we could repeat the conversation. On page 12, which is not numbered, I'll note that, of this resolution, at the bottom, second to last paragraph, in R, Part 1, I'm making the same language revision that once an assessment deferral and tax abatement agreement, which was approved by the Common Council, has been signed by all parties. I moved that we delete which was approved by the Common Council.
Thank you. I have an amendment to remove that said language. Do I have a second on the amendment? Same. Thank you. Seconded by Alderman Simpson. Any discussion on this amendment? Same change as the previous one discussed. Again, the change would be the exact same change in the prior page, just removing which was approved by the Common Council, which, depending on your perspective, could either make things more or less confusing, as we have established. Hearing valid points on both opinions of that. But again, the intent of this is to eliminate redundant language and to not imply that there are bodies outside of this chamber that can approve tax abatements. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I really do agree with you about removing redundancy. That is for sure, but I will be voting no on this amendment.
got it.
Can I ask, what's the reason for removing it then?
Microphone. Sure, it would be the same reason stated as previously, again, that from at least the person, from the party moving, this language is duplicative because there are no other bodies that approve tax abatements. Therefore, by saying which was approved by the Common Council, depending on your opinion, could lead someone to believe there are other bodies out there that could approve these tax abatements, which is not the case, which is not what we're stating, which is what we're trying to clarify with the amendment, I believe.
Chairman, you're doing a good job.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have an amendment, third one, seconded by Alderman Simpson. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No,
Party line.
yes.
Okay. Great. So we have the resolution as amended, which has a favorable recommendation by Alderman McNamara, seconded by Alderman Simpson. Any further discussion as amended? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of the resolution as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No,
Party line?
yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me on that adventure.
You did very well, Mr. Chairman.
Great. So I believe we are on to item number 4 on the agenda, 36362-4. This is the compensation resolution. May I have a motion?
Hearing none from the opposite side, I'll I'll make a motion to accept and refer to the full council with a neutral recommendation.
I have a recommendation by Alderman McNamara for a neutral referral.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to second it and offer an amendment.
Great, seconded by Alderwoman Beloin Saavedra, and...
But this time I'd like to offer an amendment, and I believe you guys will understand the amendment based on what we're going to substitute for number 5. So what I'd like to do is strike everything basically after increasing the registrar of voters' salary by $5,000. So we would be removing the whereas that talks about the city council getting an increase annually, because in substitute number 5, we take care of how the council and the rest of the elected officials are compensated on a biennial basis. The only question I have for Corporation Council, because I want to keep this resolution consistent with substitute resolution for number 5, I believe we need to make an adjustment to the date. I think it should be January 6th, 2025. Is that correct, Attorney Pokorski? To be consistent with resolution number 5, for the registrar of voters increase to go through?
Sure, yeah, 2-338 currently says effective January 6th.
Yes,
There
for
is
the
no
substitute language, correct?
Correct, yes.
So if you don't mind, as part of the amendment, removing the piece that refers to the council, also change the date from January 8th, 2025 to January 6th, because that will coincide with the next resolution that we're going to vote on, just to keep everything consistent and with the charter. Is there a second to my amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman McNamara. Any discussion on the amendment? Is that discussion, or is that? No, second. Thank you. Also seconded by Alderman Pavone. Lots of support. Do we have any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Nice, not party line for once. All right.
So if I might, Mr. Chair, so
Thank
now,
you.
oh, I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Beloin Saavedra.
Thank you. So what we now have in front of us is strictly the $5,000 increase for each registrar, which would go into effect January 6, 2025, as recommended by the Compensation Committee that was comprised of, I believe, Alderperson Scott, Alderman Pabon, and Alderman Santiago. Am I correct? Okay, so that recommendation came out of the Compensation Committee.
Thank you, Alderwoman Beloin Saavedra. Do we have any further discussion? Any further discussion on the resolution as amended? Seeing none, may I, all in favor of the resolution as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you. Alrighty, moving on. Item number 5 on the agenda, 36365-2, amendment to Chapter 2, Section 2338 of the Code of Ordinances regarding compensation. It's our second compensation resolution. May I have a motion?
I move to accept and refer back with a favorable recommendation to the council.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Alderman Pabon.
Your, Mr. Chairman. I was gonna
Alderwoman
call you-
Beloin
I was
Saavedra?
going to promote you and call you Your Honor, Mr. Chairman.
No,
I
thank you.
would at this time like to amend item number 5 with a full substitute language, which was provided to everybody earlier. It came through the Corporation Counsel's office. I did run it through all the caucuses. This is not a surprise to anybody. Your leadership was given it, and I'm assuming you guys discussed it. All as this does is it includes all elected officials, and it makes it a biennial increase instead of an annual, but maintaining the link to 1186 as the threshold for what the increase is. And it also codifies the time frame from which everybody gets the increase, so there's no monkey business moving forward in terms of trying to alter which elected official gets their increase when. This clearly delineates when the increase goes in, and that it's every other year, and it's either from the Compensation Committee recommendation, or if the Compensation Committee does not make a recommendation, then the 1186 is triggered. And my understanding is that we have an agreement between both caucuses for this one.
Thank you, Alderwoman Beloin Saavedra.
I think Jessica's asking who's seconded.
Alderman Pabon, seconded. Yep. We had a race to second it. All righty. Any further discussion on the item as amended? No further discussion. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the item as amended, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Excellent. The motion carries. Thank you. And we have one final item. Hang. Pardon me. So we have the resolution as amended with a favorable referral from Alderwoman Belen Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Pabon. Any discussion of the resolution as amended? Alderman Simpson.
I know, I apologize. I'm just, why 1186 as opposed to any of the other unions out there? I'm just,
Alderman McNamara.
Well, it would be my assumption that 1186 represents City Hall employees, and somebody more informed about this than me. I believe the mayor's salary, her benefits, come under the 1186. So I think it's consistent with past actions by the city when contracts are used to apply to elected officials.
My good God, John, I'm agreeing with you.
that's what questions do.
Something's wrong.
Look at us.
Yeah.
We're
And-
digesting, we're agreeing. This is great.
And I will say, just on the amendment, I do really appreciate the addition of fiscal year to put this in line with city budgets. That's huge. Thank you so much for that.
All right. Sounds like we have friendly amendments tonight.
No, that's already in there.
Well, right, it's on the item as amended. Any further discussion on the item as amended? Seeing no further discussion on the item as amended, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Thank you, the motion carries. All right, and I believe, are we on a tabled item? Yep. Someone's got to take it up.
Well, I'll go ahead, Mr. Chairman, if you'll
Sure.
allow me.
Before someone sneaks in a motion to adjourn, yeah, you should.
Yes. On the tabled item, I make a motion to remove from the table item 36364 to amend section 2-41 of the code regarding council subject matter committees.
Thank you. Motion to remove item 36364 from the table made by Alderman McNamara. Do I have a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Barbosa, sorry. And this is 36364. All in favor, say aye.
Wait.
This is just of removing from the table.
Oh,
This is just from taking off the table.
Yeah, you still have to vote to take it off. You're right.
Yeah. Sorry, Alderman Belen Saavedra, I'm just keeping up here. So, again, we have a motion just to remove this item from the table. Can I, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you.
Mea culpa, Mr. Chair.
This motion currently has a,
Motion to adjourn.
too late. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to further add that I'd make the motion to accept and send on to the council with a neutral recommendation. Oh, it already has neutral. I'm stand corrected. On the resolution itself, I will make an amendment at the risk of stretching our bipartisanship even further. And that is to amend the second sentence in under 2-41. And the second sentence should read, "There shall be subject matter committees of the Common Council with legislative cognizance and jurisdiction over all matters related to certain specific boards, et cetera."
Can I make a suggestion?
Corporation Council.
Can we just say that the following subject matter committees of the council shall be appointed biannually by the council at the regular meeting and shall have legislative cognizance and jurisdiction over related, and then continue on with that sentence?
That
Do you want me to read it
sounds like
again?
a acceptable
That-
phrase.
that
Do you want me to read it
purpose?
again?
Sure.
The following subject matter committees of the council shall be appointed biannually by the council at the regular meeting in November of odd number years, and shall have, and strike with, legislative cognizance and jurisdiction over all matter related to certain specified boards, commissions, and et cetera, and continue on with that sentence.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel. That sounds like it achieves the purpose of the amendment. Would that be a substitute amendment then? Your language versus,
Would Alderman withdraw his?
I would accept the rephrasing of my amendment as stated by the Corp Counsel.
Did someone second that?
do I have a second for the rephrasing?
No, we didn't get to a second yet.
Second for the rephrasing of the amendment. All in favor of the rephrased amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Alderwoman Bologne
I have
Saavedra,
my own amendment for this.
another amendment.
Yes, down the bottom where there's a strike through of the majority party leader, minority party leader, and president pro tem shall not. Sorry about that. The strike through, basically at the end where it says the majority party leader, minority party leader, and president pro tem shall not be the chair or act as the temporary chair of any subject matter committee or subcommittee where it's been strike through. I would eliminate the strike through and keep that phraseology. That's my amendment. Do I have a second?
Is there a second on the amendment?
Come on, Nate.
Seconded by Alderman Pabon. Any discussion on the amendment? And yes, Alderman Simpson.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the amendment. Is that
Could you do that? Can you do that?
This is fun.
Maybe we hear what the proposal is, and then we decide if the maker wants to withdraw. I mean, why don't we have that discussion first?
Sure. So it's actually not changing anything you want to restore. It's actually adding 2 words to where it will read, the majority party leader, minority party leader, and president pro tempore shall not be the chair, and here's the amendment, but may act as the temporary chair of any subject matter committee or subcommittee. In effect, sorry, is there a second?
Well, I'll second it, and then you explain what your intent is, so I know whether I'm going to withdraw mine.
Finish explaining first.
It's to essentially prohibit leadership from assuming leadership roles, except in cases where the normal chair would be absent. God forbid, sickness, death, ill health, they can't be there if they're overbooked for work, something like that. So strictly as a temporary basis, the leadership would then fill in as a committee, a subject matter committee or subcommittee chair.
I can accept that. So I'll withdraw my motion. Willie, withdraw your second, please. Okay, so go ahead and read the whole sentence.
So the language, as per this amendment, would be the majority party leader, minority party leader, and president pro tempore shall not be the chair, but may act as the temporary chair of any subject matter committee or subcommittee. I was wrong. This does eliminate the word "or" there, just
Sorry.
for
I'll second
particulars.
Seconded by Alderwoman Bologne Saavedra. Any discussion on the amendment?
We can reach.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Thank you. The amendment carries. Back to the resolution as amended. Any further discussion of the resolution as amended? Any further discussion? All right. Seeing no further discussion of the resolution as amended, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. May I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Barbosa, seconded by Alderman Gibson, and we all agreed on that one. Thank you.
That was actually pretty good. I liked it.
Is it Friday yet?